He once owned skyscrapers that touched the clouds, private jets that flew him across oceans, and a family that smiled for the cameras. Money flowed like rivers. Everyone called him blessed. But one cruel betrayal changed everything. His business partner stole it all. His wife walked away with another man. His children turned their backs. Friends vanished like smoke. Overnight, the billionaire became homeless. Cold rain soaked his expensive suit as he sat alone on a dark city street, with nothing but an empty pocket and a broken heart. Little did he know, the greatest treasure of his life was about to sweep into his world, with a broom, a warm smile, and a heart full of love. Lagos, Nigeria, the city of dreams and hustle. Alexander Okonkwo was once the king of it all. At just 38, he had built an empire, real estate towers in Victoria Island, tech companies, luxury hotels, and oil deals that made headlines. Forbes called him Africa's youngest self-made billionaire. His face smiled from magazine covers. His wedding to Sophia, a former beauty queen, was the talk of the town. They had 2 beautiful children, a mansion in Banana Island, and vacations in Dubai and Paris. Everyone wanted to be close to Alex. Politicians called him brother. Pastors invited him to the front seat in church. Friends filled his parties with laughter and expensive champagne. But beneath the shine, cracks were growing. His trusted business partner and best friend since university, Chike, was quietly moving money into secret accounts. Sophia had started late nights with girlfriends that Alex was too busy to question. Even his own mother began asking for bigger and bigger blessings, saying he owed the family for his success. Then one rainy Tuesday morning, everything collapsed. Chike disappeared with over 80% of the company funds. Banks froze Alex's accounts. Investors pulled out. The news screamed fraud and collapse of Okonkwo empire. Sophia packed her bags that same week. "I can't live like this," she said, tears in her eyes that felt more like relief than sadness. She took the children and moved to London with a new man, a quiet British banker who promised her the stable life she now wanted. Family turned away. Old friends stopped answering calls. Church members whispered behind his back. In less than 3 months, Alexander Okonkwo lost everything. The mansion was sold. The cars were taken. He walked out of his office for the last time carrying only a small bag. Now, late at night, he sat on a wet cardboard mat under the bridge in Oshodi, wearing the same suit he once wore to board meetings. Rain fell softly. Hunger twisted his stomach. Shame burned hotter than the cold. He stared at the city lights in the distance, the same lights that used to shine from his penthouse window, and whispered to himself, "Is this really my life now? Alone. Rejected. Forgotten." He closed his eyes, feeling the weight of a broken heart heavier than any money he ever lost. But somewhere in that same city, a simple woman named Grace was finishing her night shift as a street cleaner. She pushed her cart under the streetlights, humming an old gospel song, unaware that tomorrow morning, her kind heart would change 2 lives forever. The rain fell hard that night in Oshodi, turning the ground into mud and the air cold enough to bite the skin. Alexander sat on a piece of flattened cardboard under the bridge, his back against a concrete pillar. The suit he still wore, the last good one he owned, was soaked through. It hung heavy on his shoulders like a reminder of who he used to be. He had not eaten in 2 days. Hunger twisted in his stomach, but the pain in his heart was worse. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw the same pictures. Sophia's face the day she left. "I'm sorry, Alex. I can't do this anymore." She didn't even look back as the driver loaded her bags into the car. Their children, David and Amara, waved from the back seat, small hands, confused eyes. They didn't understand why Daddy wasn't coming with them. Then Chike's voice on the phone the day everything fell apart. "It's just business, bro. Nothing personal. Nothing personal." 20 years of friendship gone for money. Even his mother had stopped answering his calls after the news called him a fraud. "People are talking, Alex. Give us time," she had said. Time. He had no one left. People walked past him on the street above, some in fine clothes, some hurrying home from work. No one looked down. To them, he was just another homeless man. Invisible. Alexander pulled his knees close to his chest and rested his head on them. Tears mixed with the rain on his face. He didn't bother to wipe them away. "Why me?" he whispered into the dark. "I worked hard. I helped people. I went to church. I gave money. What did I do wrong?" The city lights blinked in the distance, bright, beautiful, and cruel. Those same lights used to shine for him. Now they belonged to someone else. A cold wind blew. He shivered. Sleep wouldn't come. Every small sound made him jump, a rat running past, a car horn far away, footsteps that never stopped for him. He felt smaller than he ever had in his life. Smaller than the boy who once sold pure water on these same streets to help his mother. Money had lifted him high, but now the fall had crushed him. For the first time in years, Alexander prayed, not the proud prayers of a rich man, but the broken whisper of someone with nothing left. "God, if you're there, please don't leave me too." The rain kept falling. The night felt endless. He didn't know it yet, but morning was only a few hours away. And with the sunrise would come a woman named Grace, sweeping the streets, humming softly, carrying a kindness that would slowly, gently, begin to heal a heart everyone else had thrown away. The first light of morning crept over Lagos like a gentle promise. The rain had stopped during the night, leaving the streets shiny and clean. Alexander woke slowly, his body stiff from the hard ground. He rubbed his eyes and sat up, feeling the ache in every bone. He looked around. The bridge was quiet now. A few other homeless people still slept under pieces of plastic. The city was waking up, cars starting to move, market women setting up their stalls in the distance. Alexander stood up slowly. His stomach growled again. He had no money, no plan. Just another day to survive. He walked toward the main road, keeping his head down. The smell of fresh akara and ajij bread from a nearby stall made his mouth water, but he kept moving. He couldn't beg. Not yet. Pride still held on, even if everything else was gone. Then he saw her. A woman in an orange uniform was sweeping the sidewalk just ahead. She moved with quiet energy, pushing the broom in steady strokes. Her braids were pulled back neatly under a small cap. Even from far, he could see the gentle curve of her smile as she hummed a song he almost knew, an old gospel tune his mother used to sing. Her name tag read Grace. She bent to pick up a piece of paper, then straightened and looked around, making sure the street was clean. Her face was beautiful in a simple, real way, warm brown skin glowing in the morning sun, eyes bright with kindness. Alexander stopped walking. He didn't mean to stare, but something about her held him still. Maybe it was the peace on her face. Maybe it was the way she worked without complaining, like she was thankful just to be alive. Grace turned and saw him standing there. For a moment, their eyes met. Most people looked away from homeless men quickly. Some looked with pity. Some with fear or disgust. But Grace didn't. She smiled, a small, soft smile that reached her eyes. "Good morning, sir," she said gently. Her voice was warm, like fresh tea on a cold day. The first light of morning crept over Lagos like a gentle promise. The rain had stopped during the night, leaving the streets shiny and clean. Alexander woke slowly, his body stiff from the hard ground. He rubbed his eyes and sat up, feeling the ache in every bone. He looked around. The bridge was quiet now. A few other homeless people still slept under pieces of plastic. The city was waking up, cars starting to move, market women setting up their stalls in the distance. Alexander stood up slowly. His stomach growled again. He had no money, no plan. Just another day to survive. He walked toward the main road, keeping his head down. The smell of fresh akara and ajij bread from a nearby stall made his mouth water, but he kept moving. He couldn't beg. Not yet. Pride still held on, even if everything else was gone. Then he saw her. A woman in an orange uniform was sweeping the sidewalk just ahead. She moved with quiet energy, pushing the broom in steady strokes. Her braids were pulled back neatly under a small cap. Even from far, he could see the gentle curve of her smile as she hummed a song he almost knew, an old gospel tune his mother used to sing. Her name tag read Grace. She bent to pick up a piece of paper, then straightened and looked around, making sure the street was clean. Her face was beautiful in a simple, real way, warm brown skin glowing in the morning sun, eyes bright with kindness. Alexander stopped walking. He didn't mean to stare, but something about her held him still. Maybe it was the peace on her face. Maybe it was the way she worked without complaining, like she was thankful just to be alive. Grace turned and saw him standing there. For a moment, their eyes met. Most people looked away from homeless men quickly. Some looked with pity. Some with fear or disgust. But Grace didn't. She smiled, a small, soft smile that reached her eyes. "Good morning, sir," she said gently. Her voice was warm, like fresh tea on a cold day. The days began to feel a little less heavy. Alexander started waking up earlier, just so he could be on the same street when Grace arrived for her morning shift. He didn't plan it at first. It just happened. One day turned into two, then a week. Grace noticed him every time. And every time, she smiled that same warm smile. One morning, she brought an extra ajij bread and a small sachet of peak milk. "I saved this for you," she said softly, handing it over. "You need strength." Alexander took it, his fingers brushing hers for a second. A small spark ran through him, something he hadn't felt in years. "Thank you, Grace," he said. This time, he used her name. It felt good on his tongue. She nodded and started sweeping, but she stayed close, working slowly. After a few minutes, she spoke again. "Do you have somewhere safe to sleep at night?" He looked down. "Under the bridge." "It's okay." Grace frowned a little. "It's getting colder. Be careful, please." No one had worried about him in so long. His chest felt tight. They started talking, small things at first. She told him about her life. She was 32, from a village in Enugu. Came to Lagos 10 years ago to help her sick mother. Her father had passed early. She had no husband, no children yet. "God's time," she said with a gentle laugh. Her job paid little, but she sent money home every month. She rented a small room in Ajagunal. On Sundays, she sang in the church choir. Alexander listened. Her voice was soft music to him. He didn't tell her who he used to be. He just said his name was Alex and that life had been hard lately. One afternoon, the sun was hot. Grace finished her shift early and sat on the curb next to him. She opened her bag and pulled out 2 pure sachets of water. "Here. Drink." They sat in comfortable silence for a while, watching people pass. Then Grace spoke. "You have kind eyes, Alex. Sad, but kind. God hasn't finished with you yet." He turned to look at her. Her face was close. He saw tiny freckles on her nose. Her eyes were deep brown, full of light. For the first time in months, Alexander laughed, a small, real laugh. "You always see good in people," he said. "I try," she replied. "Life is hard for everyone. A little kindness goes far." The next day, he waited for her with something in his hand, a small wildflower he had found near the bridge. It wasn't much, but it was all he had. When she saw it, her face lit up like sunrise. "For me?" she asked. He nodded, suddenly shy. "You make the mornings better." Grace took the flower gently and tucked it behind her ear. "Thank you, Alex. It's beautiful." From that day, small acts became their quiet love language. She brought food. He found little things, a pretty stone, a feather, once even a shiny coin he found on the ground. They shared stories. She told him about her mother's recovery. He told her about losing people he loved, without saying how much he once had. One evening, after a sudden rain, Grace opened her umbrella and pulled him under it with her. "Come, you'll get sick." They stood close, shoulder to shoulder. He could smell the clean soap on her skin and the rain in her hair. His heart beat fast. She looked up at him. "You're not alone anymore, Alex. Not while I'm here." He wanted to tell her everything, who he really was, how far he had fallen. But he was afraid. Afraid she would look at him differently. Instead, he just whispered, "Thank you for seeing me." Grace reached out and touched his hand, light, warm, sure. In that moment, under a small umbrella in busy Lagos, two hearts that had known too much pain began to quietly, beautifully, fall in love. The weeks turned into something soft and beautiful. Alexander and Grace now met every day. Morning shifts became their special time, but sometimes she would come back in the evening after church or errands, just to check on him. One Saturday, the sky was clear and blue. Grace finished work early and found Alexander waiting under their usual tree. "I have a surprise," she said, her eyes shining. She pulled out a small picnic, boiled groundnuts, 2 oranges, and a loaf of fresh bread she had bought with part of her salary. They sat on an old mat she brought, away from the busy road in a quiet corner of the park. As they ate, Grace asked gently, "Alex, will you tell me more about your past? You always listen to me, but you keep quiet about yourself." Alexander looked at her. Her face was open, trusting. No judgment, only care. He took a deep breath. I lost everything," he started slowly. "I had money. A lot of it. A big house, cars, a company. People respected me. But they betrayed me. My wife left. My children are far away. I ended up on the street." He stopped, waiting for her to pull away. Rich people's stories sometimes scared people like Grace. But she didn't. Instead, she reached for his hand and held it tight. "I'm sorry you went through that pain," she said softly. "Money comes and goes. But a good heart stays." Tears filled Alexander's eyes. No one had spoken to him like this since it all fell apart. "You don't think less of me?" he asked. Grace shook her head. "I see the man in front of me. The one who smiles when I come. The one who says thank you for small things. That man has a strong heart." That afternoon, something shifted inside Alexander. The heavy weight he carried began to lift, little by little. They started walking together after her shift. Grace showed him her small world, the market where she bought food cheap, the church where she sang, the tailor who fixed her uniforms. He began helping her. Carrying her heavy water bucket. Holding the broom when she rested. Small things, but they made her smile wider. One evening, rain came suddenly again. They ran laughing under a shop veranda, soaked and breathless. Grace's uniform clung to her. Her braids dripped water. She looked more beautiful than ever. Alexander couldn't hold back anymore. He stepped closer, heart beating loud. "Grace," he whispered. "You saved me. Not just with food. With your heart." She looked up at him, eyes soft and shining. "And you make me feel seen, Alex. Like I matter." He cupped her face gently with both hands. She didn't pull away. Slowly, carefully, he leaned down and kissed her. It was soft at first, like testing a dream. Then deeper, full of all the pain they had carried and all the hope they now shared. Rain poured around them, but under that small shelter, the world felt warm. When they pulled apart, foreheads still touching, Grace smiled through happy tears. "I love you, Alex," she said quietly. "I don't care about money or the past. I love the man you are right now." Alexander felt his heart heal in that moment, cracks filling with light. "I love you too, Grace," he said, voice thick with emotion. "More than I ever thought possible." They stood there in the rain's song, arms around each other, two people who had known loneliness finding home in each other's hearts. The healing had truly begun. It was a quiet Sunday evening. The sun was setting over Lagos, painting the sky in soft orange and pink. Alexander and Grace sat on their favorite park bench, holding hands like always. Grace rested her head on his shoulder, peaceful and happy. Alexander's heart felt heavy that day. He could not keep the secret any longer. Love this deep-needed truth. Grace, he said softly, turning to face her. There's something I need to tell you. About my past. She lifted her head and looked at him with trusting eyes. You can tell me anything, Alex. I'm here. He took a deep breath. I wasn't always like this. My full name is Alexander Okonkwo. A few years ago, I was a billionaire. Grace's eyes widened a little, but she stayed quiet, listening. I built companies. I had houses, cars, private planes. My face was in magazines. I was married. I had 2 children. His voice cracked. But my partner stole everything. My wife left me for someone else. My family turned away. Everything was gone. That's how I ended up on the street. He pulled out an old, folded newspaper clipping from his small bag, the last thing he kept from his old life. The headline read, Okonkwo Empire Collapses, Billionaire Loses All. He handed it to her with shaking hands. Grace looked at the photo, Alexander in a sharp suit, smiling confidently next to tall buildings. Then she looked at the man beside her now, thinner, bearded, close-worn, but the same kind eyes. She was quiet for a moment. Alexander's heart pounded. Would she leave? Would she think he lied to her all this time? Then Grace did something he didn't expect. She put the paper down gently, cupped his face in her hands, and looked straight into his eyes. Alex, she said, voice steady and full of love. Thank you for trusting me with your truth. Tears rolled down his cheeks. I was afraid you'd see me differently, he whispered. Grace shook her head. Money doesn't make a man. The heart does. I didn't fall in love with a billionaire. I fell in love with the man who smiles when I bring bread. The man who carries my bucket without being asked. The man who makes me laugh on hard days. She wiped his tears with her thumb. Your past is part of you, but it doesn't change how I feel. I love you, all of you. The broken parts, the healing parts, every part. Alexander pulled her close and held her tight, crying quietly into her shoulder. All the shame, all the fear he carried, it melted away in her arms. When they pulled back, Grace smiled through her own tears. And one day, she said softly, when you're ready, we'll build something new. Not an empire of money. But a home full of love. That's the only wealth I want. Alexander kissed her forehead, then her lips, slow, deep, full of gratitude. In that moment, the truth didn't break them. It made them stronger. The billionaire was gone forever. But the man Grace loved, honest, humble, and full of hope, was here to stay. And together, they were ready for whatever came next. Conclusion. A year later, the sun shone brightly over a small but beautiful home in the quieter part of Lagos. Alexander and Grace stood in the garden, hand in hand. It wasn't a mansion. It wasn't Banana Island. But it was theirs, bought with honest work and saved money. Alexander had started small again. With Grace's encouragement, he used his old knowledge to help small businesses grow. He became a quiet advisor, teaching young entrepreneurs how to avoid the mistakes he made. Money came back slowly, but this time it felt different, earned with integrity, shared with love. Grace still worked as a street cleaner for a while, proud of her job. But soon she opened a little catering business, cooking the meals that Alexander said tasted like home. Her smile and her food drew people in. Their home was always full of laughter, friends, and family. They got married in a simple church ceremony. Grace wore a beautiful white lace gown that made her glow like an angel. Alexander looked at her walking down the aisle and cried happy tears, the kind that heal old wounds. His children, David and Amara, came back little by little. First letters, then visits. They saw their father happy, humble, and deeply in love. They saw how Grace treated him with respect and care. Slowly, bridges were rebuilt. Sophia sent a message once, "I'm happy you found peace." Alexander forgave her in his heart and moved on. On their first anniversary, Alexander took Grace to the same park bench where they had shared groundnuts and dreams. He knelt down and held her hands. "Grace, you found me when I was lost. You loved me when I had nothing. You taught me that real wealth is a heart full of love. I was a billionaire once, but I was never truly rich until I met you." Grace smiled, tears shining in her eyes. "And you showed me that love doesn't need money to be beautiful. You gave me a home in your heart, Alex. That's all I ever wanted." They kissed under the setting sun, surrounded by the city that once broke him and then helped heal him. Alexander Okonkwo was no longer the billionaire the world once knew. He was something far greater, a man who lost everything, found true love on the street, and built a life richer than any empire. Because in Grace's arms, he finally found forever. Love had won. And it was the most beautiful victory of all. And that's the end of Alexander and Grace's beautiful love story, a reminder that no matter how dark the night gets, love can find you. No matter how much you lose, a kind heart can make you rich again. True love doesn't care about money, status, or the past. It only cares about the person standing in front of you right now. If this story touched your heart, if it made you smile, cry, or believe in second chances again, please don't keep it to yourself. Share this story with someone who needs hope today. Comment below, have you ever experienced a love that healed you? Or seen kindness change someone's life? Tell us your story, we read every one. Like and subscribe for more heartwarming love stories that prove love always wins. Because stories like this remind us, you are never too broken to be loved. And real love? It can start anywhere, even on a rainy street, with a simple smile and a piece of bread. Thank you for watching. May you find, or keep, the kind of love that makes you feel truly rich. God bless you.